Well, they're ones and zeros right now, but, you know, if it's converted into gold or silver, then you have to liquidate everything that is in US currency and stocks, bonds, treasuries, notes, bills, all of those investments, real estate, REITs, all of those investments would need to be liquidated in order to be converted to another form of currency, whether it be US dollars, gold, or silver.
The question is there enough gold and silver in our assets right now to liquidate that?
No.
Arthur's shaking his head.
But that's not the important part. The important part is
Well,
that,
it is important. I apologize.
the important part is that that would protect the PFD from the inevitable reality that it will one day be worthless. Those papers, those
Maybe
stocks,
soon.
those bonds
Right.
will be worthless.
Yeah.
And if we don't take this position, that PFD, we can just say goodbye PFD, and it is gone.
Which is why we maybe should add silver and remainder gold.
I think this is something that's gonna need working on. And with a lot of people who are familiar with this, I think we're gonna be here chasing our tails for a long time. And that's why committees do this work, and that's why sometimes they can't complete it in the time frame.
I think we should vote for it as is, if not, you know.
Okay,
Mr.
then
Chair, I'm
you,
gonna object for discussion purposes, because I want.
take the mic, Mario.
Yeah, where is the mic?
Oh, right here.
I'm in support of all these principles, especially Mr. Surkoff knows more than I do, but as an ignorant lawyer, I want to know, number one, if it's got to be transferred out of stocks and bonds, that means it has to go to some sort of a neutral medium, right? And then it has to be used to purchase the hard assets. Is that neutral medium going to be the US dollar?
Sure.
Okay, so it's got, there's two steps. It's got to be liquidated, and liquidated means it's got to go to an intermediate step, and then that has to be used to purchase the hard assets, right? Okay, second problem I have is what you guys have just mentioned here, which is we don't have enough hard assets to do it, which sounds to me like this is not so much a platform as this is an aspiration, because even if we had control of the governor's office and control of the Alaska, what is it, Permanent Fund Board Corporation, or the corporation board, and we wanted to do this, it sounds like we couldn't do it, right? Even if we had the practical means to do so?
According to the federal government of the United States, we could. There is, according to them, enough silver for this to happen.
Okay, the fact that we're having discussion, again, I'm gonna vote against this, not because I don't believe in what Arthur's pointing out here and the fact that it has to be pointed out, but the language is inaccurate. Full repatriation, if we're gonna do full repatriation, it's gonna be done in chunks, right? We're gonna have to find where the assets are, and then it's gonna have to go into the dollar, and then it's going to have to be used to purchase hard assets somewhere. The practical aspects of that are obscure to me, and that's why I can't support it as a platform
Right.
plank.
And not as a platform plank, it can certainly be tweaked by as a resolution to say commensurate with the ability to liquidate or something like that.
So I support the aspiration. I won't be supporting this plank for those reasons.
All right. Arthur?
What I fail to understand is how many other resolutions there are. We don't get into the nitty-gritty. You know, it doesn't matter how you actually do it. Well, it's gonna go into dollars and then it's gonna go into this. If we go into the voting thing, we say, well, it's gonna first go to this, well, then we have to do this, then we have to do. We're not looking at the middle exactly how it's gonna be done day to day. This is a financial thing. You click a button, it's sold. You click another button, the silver is bought. No dollars are exchanged.
That's true for small amounts, smaller amounts.
I mean, it's what I'm saying is the minutia of this, I don't see a reason to go into it at all.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I fully support the concept. I think going to sound money is an important process. And I think keeping it to that high level of we support sound money is appropriate in a platform. When we start getting into the minutia, then that belongs on the resolution side to write it accordingly, because as a resolution, we can go because of this, because of that, and the other, therefore, this is why we support what we're supporting. in order to write it into a platform without the basis does not make sense.
All right, we're gonna have a call here, and Arthur, you made the suggestion that, all right, let's just vote it as it's written right now. And so, Russ, I wanna try Arthur's suggestion that we just vote yes or no as it's written.
I'm not opposed to that. Mr. Chairman? Where did I go? Hello?
No?
I'm not opposed to your recommendation, Mr. Chairman, but I want to make one point, if I may, please. There is an introduction in the House of Representatives of the United States of America as we speak. From what I understand by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, our enemy, that the United States of America go to a pure digital form of currency and eliminate all other monies. So we don't have a lot of time. If she can get it passed, she'll get it passed. And I've told others that our present House of Representatives, controlled by Democrats, is hell-bent on getting everything they can get passed to destroy this nation before the next election, because they know what's coming. So we've got to move on this.
All right.
One more point that I want to point out. So this is wrapped neatly, right? The reality is, if and when the fiscal responsibility of the U.S. leads to default, leads to a position where all paper denominated assets lead to zero, the state of Alaska is left with nothing, no value, no PFD fund, no really anything. This, by having it in the state of Alaska, currently it's in the PFD, but it's really our rebuilding fund. So just getting that gold, getting that silver into the state of Alaska is just our security against the fiat default.
All right. We're going to vote on this as it stands, and fully expecting a division of the House, I'm going to ask for a raising of hands. You're only allowed to raise one hand. All right?
Repeat what we're voting on?
Yes, here's what we're voting on. As this is written currently, I'm highlighting it here. For the full repatriation of the PFD fund out of insecure fiat US dollars denominated, I'm just going to take US fiat dollars assets and into physical silver within Alaskan state vaults. Is that okay? I took out denominated assets there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the implication, denominated assets as in stocks.
I'll put it back.
bonds. I would just remove the S from the terms
I'll read it
dollars,
again
and it's
today.
good.
For the full repatriation of the PFD fund out of insecure fiat dollars denominated assets and into physical silver within Alaska state vaults. All those in favor of this plank as it is written, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Your vote doesn't count according to parliamentary procedure, unless it's a tiebreaker.
Was your hand raised to make that,
No,
point? Okay, so I won't count my vote, thank you, parliamentarian. The motion is defeated 10-5. Excuse me, the motion is sustained 10-5. Thank you. I misspoke. The motion is sustained 10-5. The scribe will please write it as you see it on the screen. This will conclude the platform, okay?
Right.
Before we go into resolutions, does the nominations committee have a slate?
Yes, I sent it to you.
I have, okay, thank you. It's on my email?
Yep.
Which is could be quite questionable as to whether or not I'll ever find it, because my screen keeps going blank. It's not under Ms. Moose, John Nelson? No, it's not under.
It's on nominations
It says nominations.
from me.
Coming in.
Here, Shelley. I got you, Al
It's supposed to be a Zoom. Here we go.
and me.
I want to zoom, I want to zoom out
There was more
so I
in
can
that
see what
city.
I'm
Do you
doing.
have any
John
idea?
Wayne was.
Who?
Yep.
Wayne, well, I don't know.
Michael, would you please come on up?
The gentleman at the end, he was,
Yeah, Terry.
there we go, Taryn.
I got his.
And,
Hold on, because we're going to begin with nominations now. Tony, right there, I think wrote it down fast enough. Michael, go
I
ahead.
think.
Okay, we have nominations on the floor for
that's-
chair.
that was
Right now, we have Bob Bird nominated for chair. Is there a second?
And Bert, Bert
second.
was, there we go.
Okay, so are there any other nominations with regard to the chair?
Who's been nominated?
Bob Bird. Seeing no other nominations, I call for the vote. All in favor of Bob Bird continuing as the chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to the chair. The second one is vice chair. We have two vice chairs. We have vice chair south and vice chair north. Shelley Wyatt, you want to make a motion to these? Vice chair south, you've nominated me.
Yes, I have.
I'd like to make a nomination for Michael Chambers as Vice Chairman South.
Is there a second?
I second it.
There's a nomination or motion for Michael Chambers as vice chair south. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next, vice chair north.
I make a motion that Arthur Surkov be nominated as vice chair north.
Do I hear a second?
I would like to second the motion.
Second, is there any other nominations? Hearing no other, I'm going to call for the question. The question is, shall Arthur Surkov be the vice chair of North? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That was one of
Carried.
I'll remember that.
The next one is, let's see, next one is.
It blacks in and out. There you go. Can you scroll it down? There you go, Michael.
Okay, the next one is secretary. I have a nomination on the floor for Tony Bird. Is there a second on that motion? Or who makes the motion? Please make a motion.
I make a motion for.
You can't nominate me.
He's ineligible.
I'm not an Alaskan, I'm just a visiting brother.
Does he have to be an Alaskan?
You can't.
I don't think you have to be are you part of the Alaskan Independence Party?
No, I hate to say I'm not.
Would you like to join?
You can't do this from Los Angeles, no.
Yes.
That being that Mr. Tony Bird has withdrawn his eligibility, I would like to nominate Shelley Wyatt as secretary for the party.
There's a nomination for Shelley as secretary, and it's been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other, I'll close that out, and let's take a vote for the nomination of Shelley as the secretary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to being secretary.
Shelley, you lost your chance to oppose it.
I know.
Oh, but she was in the room.
The next one, would someone make a nomination or motion to nominate Benjamin Petrocco for treasurer?
I motion to nominate Benjamin Petrocco for treasurer.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of Benjamin being the treasurer, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to being treasurer.
Can I ask a question here, Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Mr. Benjamin, I understand, lives in Fairbanks, is that right?
Yes.
And Mr. Bird lives in North Kenai. Mr. Bird, is there a conflict with proximity between you and the treasurer?
The problem is going to be getting his name as a duly authorized person to withdraw funds. And I will, I believe this is possible to do from one branch of the
It is.
bank to the other, which is National Bank of, not,
First National.
First National Bank of Alaska, and with David Cuddy's assistance, I think we can do that, so, it has to be done, and it's probably a good idea to have people on opposite sides of the state, able to, access the funds. All right?
Okay, so you're comfortable with it?
Okay, so the next is a recommendation I had were fundraising chair. Shelley actually has stepped up and
Is that a conflict of
and
interest, though?
indicated that, so, you know, you can in fact hold two positions with, you know, it's real common for secretary and treasurer to be
Question,
one
Mike,
person.
anybody can hold a fundraiser, can't they?
Yeah, that's true. So, anybody can, this is just a recommendation that we have actually a fundraising chair that sits in the executive, that would have a vote. Mark?
Anybody doing a fundraiser has to be designated as a deputy treasurer.
That's correct.
Yeah, but that's okay, it's just a point of order, that's it.
That's correct.
Okay.
So are there any motions on the floor to nominate a fundraiser?
So moved.
Shelley, could you serve both
Position.
both positions? Is there a second?
One.
Deputy treasurer, secretary. Delegates.
Yeah. Is there a second?
I would like to make, I heard a second, and with a second, I would like to debate this, I'd like to make a point.
Sure.
The point I wanna make is what we're doing here is actually trying to get another person who will have a voice in the executive, realm, okay? And so, since anyone can do fundraising, this office, does it exist in the bylaws?
No, it doesn't.
So, but deputy treasurer does?
Deputy treasurer is the state's legal term.
All right.
So, any deputy treasurer anybody can be nominated or selected as a deputy treasurer, and we don't have to go through
Okay,
this.
so I'm going to speak against having her fill two offices for the sake of having another voice within the executive realm. And to let people know that a deputy treasurer will possibly be overseeing fundraising, but is a person that would be a trusted advisor, and that's the.
Who made that original motion for?
I'm gonna vote against this.
No, but who made that original motion? For Shelley.
I did.
Would you withdraw that
Yes,
motion?
happy to withdraw.
There, it's withdrawn.
Okay, I would like to nominate Phil Moran as deputy treasurer because he's a close friend, a trusted advisor, and would give us somebody on this end of the state for me to consult with closely.
Is there a second?
I second.
So there's been a motion on the floor for deputy treasurer for Phil Moran. It's been seconded. Is there any objection? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. Parliamentarian. I'd like to hear a motion to recognize Mark Kryson
Make
as
a
our
motion that we,
parliamentarian.
nominate and appoint Mark Kryson as parliamentarian.
So you're making a motion for him to be that.
Aye.
Second?
I would second that.
Mark, please
Okay,
vote.
any objections? All in favor of Mark Kryson being the parliamentarian, so state.
Aye.
Objections? It's carried. That's it?
That's it?
Membership?
That was quick. Why can't these other committees do that?
Michael,
Yes.
you have membership up there that's not.
Yes, I do, but I
Just
would
wanna
run
make
into the
sure you
same
sign.
thing. I'd run into the same thing as we did before where we have to you know, take that to the bylaw committee and,
Okay.
you know.
I'm just pointing it out, didn't
Yep.
know if you saw it.
Yep. Let's have a hand for Michael. Yes.
Another point of order. The chair can appoint standing committees or standing committee chairman at any time that would be part of the executive committee, and that will allow you to do membership and the fundraising at any given time.
Good.
You don't have to worry about doing this, it's already in your power.
Thank you. Now, we go to resolutions. All right, knowing that we are probably, we're gonna have an incomplete, thing here. Phil, I'd like you to come on up.
Oh, you have to speak to them.
John Nelson, you're involved with this as well, and you know, I presume on your laptop know exactly what is and is not ready. You have sent me some things, have you not? So I'm gonna kick it up, and Phil, you're gonna read them.
Well, the first resolution was actually offered by Terrence, last name I forgot.
Shanigan.
Shanigan. It's a 3-page whereas. 3 pages of whereas, and they didn't have an actual resolution to resolve it. So this is where we were also going to recommend that we were going to take it to committee to work on, send it to be approved, and then disperse to the rest of the convention later. It's a great idea, and it ties everything we're standing for, planks, bylaws, everything together nicely. I'm not wearing my hearing aids, so I don't know how loudly I'm talking. Sometimes I'm shouting and I can't tell. Anyway, so we're going to deal with this, and that resolution was tribal recognition. I think it would behoove us at this time to recognize that there's a resolution to deal with that, but we won't really be spending much time on it, unless you want to read 3 pages of very technical history about Alaska's history. I recommend that we table that first resolution, recognizing it's here, and then dealing with it online through committee and bringing it back to the organization. I don't know how to resolve that other than my recommendation.
Bill,
Parliamentarian,
do we have some resolutions package ready?
Yes.
Let's deal with
The
those.
second one was the silver PFD. I don't know if you have that one up.
I don't know, it's up on my screen, but the problems are,
You wanna come here and read it?
Or you read it.
whatever goes up will only be there temporarily, that's the problem.
Silver PFD resolution, Alaska Independence Party, whereas the permanent fund dividend is currently composed of over $81.9 billion worth of financial assets that are entirely dependent on the stability of the U.S. notes issued by the Federal Reserve. Whereas the Federal Reserve has taken a fiscal approach that has put the stability and the integrity of the dollar at risk through hyperinflation. Whereas the risk of a collapse in the value of the fiat US dollar is very real, putting the wealth of Alaskan PFD into such a responsible investment mechanism is too large of a risk to Alaskans, to whom the PFD rightfully belongs. Therefore, it shall be resolved that the entirety of the PFD should be repatriated into the state of Alaska into the form of physical silver bullion stored within Alaskan vaults. At current prices, this would come out to the sum of 3.3 billion ounces, from which the dividend would be distributed annually in the form of physical silver to each Alaskan resident. This measure should continue until macroeconomic outlook of the US dollar has stabilized and the Federal Reserve has resumed operation in a fiscally responsible way.
That's a resolution.
We don't have any way right now to get this projected. And everyone heard it verbally. and we have the situation where everyone is entitled to look at it, and it's gonna take a long time. And that's one of the package-ready resolutions, correct?
Yes.
John?
No, not quite. There was. Phil.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to comment.
There was discussion in the committee to add gold to this, and amend it,
Straight into that?
so it was not complete.
The cord isn't long enough. I'm sorry, I was in technical consultation. It was the thought was to put it, the HDMI cord straight into that projector, but it's not long enough. So we're not gonna have somebody stand up there and hold it. Okay, Phil, would you please restate?
There was discussion in the committee to add gold to this as well, and so it was not complete.
All right, so it's not package ready.
The only issue the committee had was whether to include a portion of the commodity, metal commodity as gold versus just silver. So that was really our only debate in passing it out. Otherwise, the committee supported it.
We're gonna try John's laptop here.
And the other part of that was also due to the fact that when you're looking at gold, right now it's considered an asset and not legal tender currency, and therefore House Bill 167 comes into play. But if it is transferred in a physical form, then that will be taxed as an asset, not as an untaxable currency. It's a big difference there.
There you go, John, you got it.
I think we should vote it as is. If we need to, we can amend it later.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Put a motion on the floor.
I'd like to put a motion to vote on the resolution.
I second.
Well, I wanna have everyone read it. You know, it's one thing, you hear it audially. Whereas the permanent fund dividend is currently composed of over $81.9 billion worth of financial assets that are entirely dependent on the stability of the United States dollar notes. Whereas the Federal Reserve has taken a fiscal approach that puts the stability of the integrity of the dollar at risk through hyperinflation, whereas the risk of a collapse in the value of the fiat US dollars is very real. Putting the wealth of the Alaskan PFD into such an irresponsible investment mechanism is too large of a risk to Alaskans to whom the PFD rightfully belongs. I would change that for Alaskans, but it's not important. Therefore, be it resolved that the entirety of the PFD should be repatriated into the state of Alaska in the form of physical silver bullion stored within Alaskan vaults. At current prices, this would come out to a sum of 3.3 billion ounces from which the dividend would be distributed annually in the form of physical silver to each Alaskan resident. This measure should continue until the macroeconomic outlook of the US dollar has stabilized and the Federal Reserve has resumed operations in a fiscally responsible way. The question I have, Arthur, is that the silver won't sit in the vault and grow.
Neither will the stock amount you hold.
Neither will what?
If you buy X amount of Microsoft stock, it also just sits.
But
it
its
grows.
value can increase.
Yes, and it could decrease.
Okay, so if we had 3.3 billion ounces of silver, all right, after a few years, we're going to have $2.7 billion of silver.
We're still gonna have 3.3 billion ounces of silver.
So, but you're talking about distributing this finite amount of specie in the form of silver being annually put into the hands of Alaskans. So it can only go one way, less and less silver in the vault.
But the value of it can go up and up.
The value of the silver insofar as inflated US currency. So the value of the silver stays the same. It's the value of the dollar that's going down,
It's a protective measure, sure.
okay? Now, John, you'll have to get to the microphone. It's coming your way, John.
Hey, John. Two little things. One is, yes, I totally agree with what Bob is saying as far as a dividend. It needs to be a portion of the silver distributed to people, which would go down. The value would go up because other things are getting inflated. But more importantly, that little error I don't see as important as the fact that this all says the permanent fund dividend as opposed to the permanent fund. It needs to be the permanent fund.
So there's an important change that's got to be made.
Yes, yes, because this is not, the dividend is a little pittance we get each year. This is talking about the whole permanent fund. And I would just say from which a portion would be distributed, and don't even worry about how much of a portion.
Arthur?
I'd like to make a motion that it be voted on with the assumption that we are gonna edit the word dividend out.
We can do it right now because John's here with his computer.
Go for it.
All right?
More discussion?
Well, we can have discussion, but I second it.
That motion is on the floor, and this amendment,
Second.
that's gotta be taken care of first.
What about gold? Can we add that?
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
Where are we changing?
Dividend,
Where?
first line.
Well, it's further down.
We just everywhere, dividend should be removed.
You want me to remove the permanent fund dividend?
No,
Just
Remove the word dividend.
Yeah.
Remove the word dividend and the letter D for, under the PFD.
Or replace
Permanent
PFD
fund.
with permanent fund.
PF.
Where's that tech guy? He needs a new box right here. This transmitter's not working.
We've been having this problem all day, as you know, John.
Well, that's the box here.
Yep.
You wanna try this one?
And if,
Other than listening to
Yeah.
America,
You want the box? or-
yeah, just the box, just that little box you had in your hand, the box you had in your hand.
Okay, that is also set up.
However,
Yeah, let's just get that little box. And this went back to our discussion on putting it all in committee.
This may be a receiver that's hooked up to the projector.
Or really, the only way to mitigate any of this risk is to eliminate the Federal Reserve.
I know,
But you're asking the Federal Reserve to become more responsible.
but what that means in practice is never.
We gotta get rid of the Fed.
So, waiting for the Federal Reserve to be
Reality set in.
responsible is like waiting for, I don't know.
If you get this on the books,
I don't
when
think
it
we
happens,
get to
and it
the
will
crux of
happen,
this quite yet.
we'll have a hell of a lot of numbers.
Exactly.
The
And
crux
they'll
is the
understand.
value
I wanna
of
get
these,
involved, because they will
three
have
point
lost
three
their
billion
ass.
ounces.
Exactly.
You're defining the value in terms of US dollars at the time you have redeemed them into silver. And now you're assuming that the value of the bullion is going to go up. And how do you assess how that's going up in terms of inflating dollars?
Correct.
So then you're gonna be distributing physical silver to Alaska's citizens on the basis of freezing it to that value of dollars at the time.
Not
that
at all.
you redeemed it.
Not at all. That's not
And
in
you're
there.
actually, you're gonna be diminishing your reserve.
That's what I was bringing up 10
Yeah,
minutes ago.
exactly.
If you're sending the bullion into the hands of the people every year,
Does money currently trickle into the PFD, permanent fund, from Alaskan oil revenue? And it will continue to do so in this instance.
But
The
that's
question-
not how we're making the
the-
money off of that fund, though. We're making the money off the fund because it's been reinvested somewhere.
Arthur's point is that as we get oil royalties, we'll keep translating it into silver.
True, but the only way that that silver increases in value is if the economy tanks, which it will at some point. But the problem is that money is not now co-located together as an investment piece. Time value of money, right? So as we have much more money in the bank, we're making more each year. But if you get rid of all that, now we have 10 pieces of silver to invest instead of 100 pieces of silver because we just gave it away. Now, I'm all for securing our monetary value somehow, because we know that this isn't gonna last forever. Next week, the economy could tank and we lost $40 billion, okay? But the problem, so I'm more in favor of a situation where we have some sort of reserve fund, but not necessarily paying it out. That way, at the state level, when we need to pay something out, it's backed by something. But I don't know that we can start giving dividends in physical silver, because now, maybe the dividend, sure, but not the entire PFD, because we can't make any money off of it. We're making money because pharmaceuticals are making money, and oil companies are making money, and Microsoft's making money. All those things that the permanent fund is invested in is what's generating the money. Okay, so that's one risk. This other question I have is, because it's a commodity, essentially, what are we doing with that 3.3 billion ounces? Where are we gonna get it from? When we buy, as the state of Alaska, 3.3 billion ounces, that price went to $30 an ounce instead of 25. And we need to have a physical place. Can we even buy 3.3 billion ounces in a week? No, it's gonna take a long time to produce that silver because there's not that much out there. And, so we also run the risk then is, as we purchase maybe 1 million ounces to start buying this, now the price of silver goes through the roof. And we buy less and less and less. So our value then, at least dollar-wise, I get it, it's a hedge, right? It's something to secure the value of what we have. But I don't know that, it's a tough problem, and I don't think we're gonna solve that with one idea. I think we need to have a resolution where we do something about it, but we can't physically store it because we can't physically buy $3.3 billion tomorrow.
According to the U.S. Geological Survey, much smarter than me, there is 53 billion ounces above ground silver.
Where? Sure.
Hey, that's a separate question.
No.
According to the federal government, there is so much silver that this is not gonna be a problem.
But we don't actually have it though.
What I'm saying is, according to the federal government, we do.
You trust the federal government?
What, I mean, I know a little bit more about this. I'm just gonna let you know. The best world mine production, annual world mine production of silver is just upwards of 800 million ounces, troy ounces a year, okay? So we're talking about, if we could get all the silver produced every year, it would take at least 4 years at current production rates, and production is falling. Above and beyond that, the best estimates, go look it up on the internet, is there's at most 4 billion ounces, above ground ounces of silver in existence today. That's the optimistic. The lower end is 2 billion. So the fact of the matter, it would take us decades to get that. And I think to put this up there.
Arthur just said there was 53 billion.
That's what the government is saying.
No, it's not. It's between 2 and 4 billion above ground ounces right now. That's across the world. It's not in the U.S. At one point, the U.S. government itself held 2 billion ounces. They don't anymore. But the bottom line is, I guess where I'm going with this, is this needs so much work. It is not ready to be worked on. I think it's one thing, and like some people talked about, is talking about if someone wants to put forward maybe that a reserve is talked about being purchased, a reserve of gold, silver, whatever combination, as opposed to let's redeem everything. I think that's more practical. I think it's more doable. Again, just think about it in terms of the individual investor. You know, an individual investor, you know, their portfolio manager may say, you know, you should buy X amount of gold and silver as a hedge. I'm all in favor of that. I think that's really doable. I think that's more workable. It's more practical. If we talk about them acquiring, and not even fixing a certain number, but just saying we advocate that the state of Alaska take a portion over time of the PFD.
All right, so you're suggesting that this needs work. How many more resolutions do we have package ready, John? 9, and we're down to 25 minutes here. So,
I'd like to make a motion to just vote on it.
all right, the vote is to just accept it. All right, the scribe will have a difficult time getting the wording down properly considering the changes that have been made here. And we're gonna simply let this fly, calling for the question. Assuming there's going to be a division of the House, if you are in favor of accepting this, raise your hand.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Motion, was there a second? Second. Okay.
I stand corrected, all right, but it was his resolution, so I was assuming that, no, never mind, I stand corrected, I'm tired, okay. All right. It has been seconded, correct. All right, if you're in favor of accepting this motion as written, raise your right hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you are against this, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The motion is the resolution is defeated, and it is not because it's a bad one, it's because it needs work. John, we've got to move it here. Thank you. Did we switch receiver boxes?
No, I just haven't.
Well, we're just lucky for right now. Let's get the easy ones first.
We got their emails.
Yeah, I moved it.
Take my mouse. Here, take my mouse.
I got it.
All right.
What really should
There it goes again.
is that these committees should have been formulated about 2 months ago, and these things have been.
No, being unable to project this, I need a tech. I mean, the whole thing, we're gonna try to change that receiver box right now. See if it makes a difference.
John.
Can you email me from what you have on my?
Let me try this right here.
John.
Yeah.
It's not the laptop, it's the receiver box. Or the projector. Because John made a switch from mine to his, and it hasn't changed the problem.
We've got another projector, is what I'm saying, if we have parallel versions going, maybe we can try and get one set up even if this continues to fail.
What resolutions have we passed, if I may ask? Not planks, but resolutions.
Parallel version?
None.
So he's got a laptop.
We've had 2, and they were both,
John, you want to try reading what you've got there on the screen?
That's correct.
I changed the box.
That's correct. Yeah, there are problems, yeah. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. That's it.
Just run through them, when it clicks on, it's on the center.
Yeah.
Mr. President, or Chairman,
But see, that's the whole thing.
Yes.
is there's
I
too
can
much
go
stuff
through
going
the
on.
resolutions that we have on the
The
list
executive committee, we can clean this
and
stuff up
present the concepts
and then send it out.
that we're going to be dealing with, if that would be expedient.
Let's wait one last chance here. The work of the Resolutions Committee can be emailed to me and distributed to everyone in attendance here.
Traditionally, there's a
No,
3-day
they're pretty
convention to
pieces.
do that process, and I'm going to
They
recommend
only
that
did, like,
next
2 or
convention,
3
that
days.
all resolutions be submitted a month in advance, that they might be
Yeah.
previewed before the 1-day, 2-hour event.
We always did, we've done that in the past. This goes back to our previous days.
But you're right, I worked with John Nelson before. That's why, ahead of time, see, within committees, what you always learn is to get your, like we do, you and myself.
John,
We
would
get
you
ducks in a
read
row.
verbally what
So
you
we
think
always
are
know
the
what the
easiest
votes are.
resolutions to
That's
pass?
hard to do it.
Here's the microphone,
When
John.
you're in your
Read
negotiating
it,
with
scroll it
somebody,
right through your own computer.
and it's not like totally cut and dried, you're always gonna have people, you know, and especially when it comes to
Election integrity resolution, whereas over 100,000 Alaskan voters personal data was stolen from the Alaska Division of Elections, and the identity of a larger number of Alaskan voters had become compromised before the 2020 general election. Whereas prior to the 2020 election cycle, the Department of Administration Oversight and Review Unit prepared at the public's expense a report on the Division of Elections, also known as the Chewbacca Report, in which the majority of this report had been redacted and kept from public view. Whereas in the 2020 election cycle, the state of Alaska paid ERIC, an organization originally funded by George Soros and created for blue states, to monitor our state voter roll. Whereas the chain of custody cannot be established for the mail-in ballots, online ballots, and absentee ballots for the November 3rd, 2020 election. Whereas the Alaska judicial system circumvented the legislative authority and changed election laws days before the 2020 election, in which the rules for the mail-in ballots were revised to set aside absentee ballot witness requirements. Whereas the Alaska Division of Elections makes no effort to verify the identity, citizenship, eligibility, nor verify signatures on mail-in ballots. Whereas electronic vote counting machines were called into question as to the reliability and security against the hacking or manipulation. Therefore, be it resolved that the Alaska Independence Party support a full detailed forensic audit of the 2020 general election, removal from the use of ERIC by the Division of Elections, and support House Bill 39, but only to use paper ballots and have 1 day to vote, and must present ID to vote in order to restore confidence to the voters of Alaska of the integrity of every aspect of the election process.
That's a lot of great work the Resolutions Committee did. It's listing it all. Now, please understand, in order to expedite this process, we can parse through all kinds of nuances in the words, but what's important is that therefore be it resolved. All the other things can be distributed to you by email. Michael?
I make a motion that we accept this resolution.
The motion is made to accept this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
It is seconded. Is there discussion?
I'll object just for the point of discussion. We mentioned about absentee ballots in the platform plank. Is there any mention about absentee ballots and the lawful absentee ballots as we talk about in our platform plank?
I can't answer that.
If not, I would simply ask maybe a friendly amendment about lawful absentee ballots to be included. Not obviously the paper ballot system that is causing everybody, ruining our lives. But that's the only thing I would offer. I think that's inconsistent with our platform plank as previously approved.
I accept that friendly amendment.
All right, we're going to call for the question.
Oh, there's the absentee ballot. Oh.
Lawful absentee ballots, okay?
Notarized absentee ballots?
Lawful.
Notarized?
Lawful.
And the
keep it
next
lawful,
line-
then it's lawful.
And the next line it mentions absentee ballots witness requirements.
Okay.
We want the law to say notarized.
Nice work, Bert.
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Phil, did I
Next
speak too
resolution.
quickly?
No.
No, okay. The motion, the resolution has passed.
Wow. Next one, John. You got 5 minutes.
You have 15. Is there a way this can be emailed? I think it has been emailed to me, Tony.
Do the PFD. That's
Number
easy.
4, vaccine mandate.
All right?
Shall I read that?
I would say, yes, go ahead, John.
Alaska Independence Party resolution, we made an adjustment to the name vaccine mandate resolution. Whereas the Biden-Harris administration CMS healthcare vaccine mandate is mostly certainly government overreach and medical tyranny, which violates medical rights, the privacy, as well as the right to choose certain healthcare providers. Whereas this mandate denies medical care via Medicare and Medicaid to those persons choosing a healthcare provider that does not participate in the COVID-19 experimental gene therapy known as a COVID-19 vaccine. Whereas this mandate also forces those medical providers to force staff vaccination and also must offer what they consider a risky and sometimes lethal injection known as the COVID-19 vaccine to their patients. Whereas the risk associated with the vaccine are well known yet lied about by government, so no one should be forced to be vaccinated as a requirement to be a Medicare or Medicaid provider, especially since highly successful treatments are available, yet those treatments are being suppressed by our government. Whereas this mandate is a direct threat to our health when such providers are the only option offering specific treatments for specific illnesses and diseases. Therefore, be it resolved that the Alaska Independence Party encourages all citizens to petition their local, state, federal officials to demand the Biden-Harris administration rescind this mandate immediately. And it was recommended we put in all nominees of the Alaska Independence Party commit to support this resolution, but not just this one, all of them. Maybe that's a platform issue.
That is.
Is there discussion?
I make a motion
The motion is?
to accept this resolution as.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. What an incredible, how'd you guys fly that out in a couple hours?
So.
Great work.
Bob,
Go ahead.
Are we accepting all of these resolutions with the provision that they will possibly, meaning may or may not, be refined by the executive committee?
No, these are ones that we consider easy to pass, and they have passed. It doesn't mean they're perfect either.
Number 5 was sound money in support of House Bill 67.
Needs further editing.
And any on these that aren't passed can certainly be put forth for discussion for sure.
What do we have so far as tribal acknowledgement?
33 pages.
33 pages?
6 type pages of whereas and no resolution.
No, I proposed a resolution.
Oh,
The
okay.
resolution was that the AIP acknowledge the federal recognition of 229
Oh,
Alaskan tribes. Are you written it down?
that was, we're going backwards, we're digressing to.
Okay, go to the easy ones,
I
John.
thought that was,
No, that was the first one that we tried to talk to about the tribal acknowledgement, and this is the way it was written and provided to us, and it needed a lot more work, and
Pass over it.
Yep, so we skipped that, we hit pause on that.
I'm sorry, I wanted you to go to the easier ones first, the ones that you think will be easy to pass.
Sound monetary resolution, whereas Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution of the United States, gold or silver legal tender in the states including specie, whereas specie means a coin that has gold or silver content, whereas House Bill 167 recognizes gold and silver as legal tender within the state of Alaska and is afforded all the protections thereof. Therefore, the Alaska Independence Party support House Bill 167 in the recognition of gold and silver as legal tender currency. And with that, the bill is currently in the House Bill 167, and this is Kevin McCabe's bill that's up on April 28th for discussion.
I make a motion that we accept this resolution as written.
A motion is made to accept this resolution. Is it seconded?
I question before we approve this motion.
Let's second it so we can
Yes, second
discuss.
is needed first.
Seconded.
It is seconded. Discussion, Benjamin.
I would like to inquire as to whether or not the bill in question specifies whether or not gold and silver can be used for both public and private debts, or just public.
I can certainly speak to that. So the bill as it's presented in Juneau right now is recognizing gold and silver as legal tender currency, not to be subject to taxation, which is what needs to happen before we just accept gold and silver as legal tender currency, because we don't tax a $50 bill if I was to give it to somebody else. But with gold, that would be taxed, or silver, that would be taxed, because gold and silver is considered an asset. And that's part of the challenge. We need to get that bill through so we can recognize it. One of the things that I also encouraged Representative McCabe to do was to add in their strength in that bill, which Texas took into consideration, and that was to encourage a depository so we can store physical gold and or silver, which is what Utah just did last month. So there's a lot more to this than just meets the eye. We've just got to work together to encourage this kind of behavior.
I just have one thing. I agree with what you said, that the important part is about the taxation part. But one thing I would say, as far as anyone who has the ear of the legislator, is that we keep focusing on coinage. The vast amount of silver and gold is not held in coinage. It's held as bars. It's held as rounds.
Bullion.
It's held as other, as non-coin commodities.
And I can speak to that as well, because when you look at Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and a few other places, Oklahoma, that have recognized, if you go to goldbackbucks.com, you will see what they did was before they printed the gold. I actually have some in the car I could show you that is legal gold printed bills. It's a buck, gold-backed buck. It's got imprinted gold inside of there. The way they got around the coinage issue was they took bullion, they converted it to rounds, coins, then they printed it. That's how they're getting around it right now. So there's workarounds that we have to get through because of legal issues. And I've talked to CPAs that are going, hey, you don't want to do this because caution, caution, caution. And that again goes back to taxation of assets versus taxation, or getting a bill that goes through that says this is not going to be taxed.
I hope that resolves some of the questions. Benjamin, we gotta move it. Go ahead, because we've got 7 minutes.
No,
All right.
it's not too. No, I
Well,
was just
all right, the call for the question. All those in favor of this resolution as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. It is passed.
Be it noted that, point of order.
Point of order.
Be it noted in the minutes that there was an objection to it.
There was an objection, of course. It still passes.
An objection because I don't think it goes far enough.
That's-
John?
And you could submit that to the executive committee.
These should have been numbered on the pages as well as not just the saved file number. Number 6, food security resolution. I took, who was the gentleman that sponsored this bill? Anyways, he. Oh, Chris, right? Okay, Chris, thank you for that, and I'll co-sponsor it because I added a couple of things. Food security resolution by the Alaska Independence Party, whereas Alaska's food security is being threatened and the food supply chain is broken. Whereas the state of Alaska is a net importer of food that imports $2 billion of food annually and produces only 40 million annually. Whereas the food supply chain was greatly affected by the COVID pandemic. Therefore, the Alaska Independence Party encourages strengthening of our food independence, local agriculture, aquaculture, hunting, and fishing to feed Alaskans first.
Having bird dogged this issue for close to a year now, every farmer will tell you our problem is not producing food, it is getting it processed. We don't have enough meat packing. We've got one flour mill that's privately owned. And the farmers themselves have said, we have 20,000 acres in Delta Junction alone lying fallow because there's no point raising animals or grains that cannot be handled. So the resolution is great. It does not look into the problem of processing, and immediately people are going to say, oh, have the state develop these processors. Well, no, and those farmers don't want to see that either. Investment capital needs to be, and venture capital needs to be offered for this sort of thing. So if we can strengthen the food independence through local processing, just add maybe through local processing, local agriculture, aquaculture, and so forth. John?
If I may, I think the last 3 on these, number 6, number 7, bear with me. I lost it here, I gotta look at my computer. If I may, these were ones that said needs work, move forward as is. Number 8, I would put forth that we table these until they're built correctly. That can be done in committee meetings.
Correct.
But the needs work, move forward as is.
Point of order is the food resolution, though.
But it's not done.
You don't feel it's done?
It's not done.
Okay.
It's been withdrawn.
The point John is getting at is that the food security resolution needs work, and so.
That was the committee's recommendation, these need work.
All right.
It's been tabled.
All right. So with that in mind, we're going to have to.
You got a couple
There's
there.
one more, John, you want to offer.
Well, there's 2, but yes.
Go to the easiest one.
Going to the easiest one.
The last one.
Number 9, sorry, I was going by order. Number 9, PFD resolution, this was put forth as being a complete bill. Whereas permanent fund dividend program was initiated in 1982 and given to Alaska a direct financial benefit to the shared resources of the state, whereas payment of the PFD is governed by the existing statute, whereas the legislature since 2015 has ignored the existing law statute which governs the current payout, whereas payments have been withheld in direct violation of the PFD statutes. Be it resolved that the traditional payout of the PFD law has never been rescinded. Be it resolved legally that the state of Alaska owes any withholding from the individual PFD since 2015. Be it resolved until the existing statute is modified or changed, Alaskans are eligible for the entire PFD payment under existing law. Any legislator who ignores existing statute is in violation of their oath of office.
Motion to accept.
Motion has been made to accept.
Any discussion?
Is there any discussion?
Call for the question.
Call for the question for passage. And a second has been made, is that right, Michael?
No.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second has been made to accept this resolution. Is there any objections?
Discussion.
What's the question?
Discussion.
Discussion? Okay. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
When this resolution was being discussed, there was, I believe there was verbiage, I guess it is 2015, okay, that all back payments basically since
Correct.
2015 are included in this, okay. It's answered.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes on that resolution.
One last one. Okay, there's one last one here, bear with me a second. And I think this is a fairly easy one, the Funny River Community Association resolution supporting the constitutional right for Alaskan grand juries. Of course, I've got to get the file, bear with me. Oops, wrong one.
I'd comment on that. They handed us a hard copy, and I think we took photos. And they're going to send the hard copy to us.
It's right here on the screen. There's a whole bunch of whereases. It's 2 pages. But the Funny River Community Association fully supported this. That might be, who's commenting on that?
Grand jury.
For grand jury.
We have already put the grand jury question in the plank.
The resolution is good, but we can't handle it now. But we do have the support of grand jury rights in the platform now. We've passed that, and I would recommend, because it's 5 o'clock, we've just turned into pumpkins. So I move, you're the chair right now, I move we table this.
The motion is made to table this last resolution. Do I hear a second? First and second has been made. Is there any discussion?
You don't need a second for a table.
Tabled? All right, it's tabled.
Tabling doesn't need a second, does it?
No.
No, it's tabled. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Here you are,
Russ.
Mr. Chairman.
Russ, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
The convention hasn't handled endorsements. I make a motion that we turn that over to the executive committee, and they make recommendations for endorsements, and turn it back to the body for a confirmation and vote.
We also have the situation, Michael, where
Call for a second?
it's called for a second. Okay, we have the situation, of course, where this is not necessarily needing to be done imminently.
That's correct.
All right. We do, of course, will abide by all of our party rules regarding AIPs first, and then we're gonna see what happens after the primaries.
Call for the question.
Called for the question about turning over endorsements to the executive committee, the newly formulated executive committee. All those in favor, is there discussion?
I would like to specify that we don't endorse people outside of our party regardless.
Okay, so that is part of the discussion. All right, that is not a friendly amendment.
No.
Okay, so is there a second to his floor amendment? It is moved and seconded that we never make endorsements outside of party members, okay?
Did you say never?
Yes.
Is there discussion? No discussion?
Are we voting on the?
We're
amendment?
voting on a hostile amendment, that we never make endorsements to non-AIP party members. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hang on.
All right,
How
Russ,
about presidential races where there's a third-party candidate?
need a microphone. It's right over there.
John? Hour? Hello? John, does that include presidential third-party candidates?
Yes.
Well, then I can object to your motion. The reason being, years ago, I don't know what it was, who was the Constitutional Convention?
The party has dropped the idea of endorsing the Constitution Party candidates and putting them on the ballot as a courtesy.
They've dropped that?
It was dropped by Lynette Clark by unilateral action about 10 years ago. I got lots of calls from the Constitution Party. and I wasn't going to fight Lynette over that.
Well, I think we ought to reinstate that if we don't have
Point
somebody.
of order.
So, we wanted, the question is voting on the hostile amendment, okay? So, yes, the point of order?
Yeah, the point of order is that, right now, there's a hostile amendment to.
It needs discussion.
Has
And
it-
Russ
has
speaks
that had a
against the
second?
hostile amendment?
Has it been seconded, that hostile amendment?
Yes, it has been.
Okay.
So that's why we're discussing it. I would like to make a discussion, therefore I have to yield the gavel.
Michael?
John Wayne Howe's amendment would further reduce the AIP to irrelevancy.
Because what's left to us if we have nobody in the general election, there's no influence. We've got 19,000 members, and they will be influenced by what the party has decided. We know, we just heard people who are AIP in all but name simply because they can't get elected unless they have an R in front of it. So we are giving, I think, due preference to our AIP candidates prior to this terrible Proposition 2 system. And so I speak against this amendment by John.
As do I.
Can I comment?
I would like to agree with Bob. We were able to interact with and receive messages from multiple Senate candidates, multiple gubernatorial candidates, and multiple House candidates, because we are able to influence the election by endorsement. If we make ourselves entirely 100% hostile under all circumstances to anyone who is not an AIP, we completely close off the ability of conservatives to come our way, and cut off our ability to act as a goad for the Republican Party to be more conservative. I would rather have a conservative Republican who I agree with 90% of the time than a communist. And if that means that I gotta give a little, then I'm willing to do that. I completely understand your hostility to the Republican Party. I hate it, but that's why I'm an AIP member and not a Republican. But I must also speak against the motion.
I accept your feelings. Mine is not a hostility to the Republican Party. Mine is a love for the Alaskan Independence Party. And I know that we don't have much for candidates. We need to push and get some candidates. And I just think as a manner of what we are about is furthering the Alaskan Independence Party. If we cannot get a candidate, the Alaskan Independence Party members, the 19,000 people, when it's left that they have no choice, they're gonna vote for the right person. We know they're not idiots. Our endorsement is not critical to how they vote. Our endorsement is actually a joke a lot of times as far as the Republicans are concerned. What, for us to listen to it, and my plan with this, we've been taking video of all this, is to put this out on YouTube. We will post all of this. The Republican comments that were here, those people will get some publicity yet from our party. There is still, and I could see some positive in some of them, but as a party, the Republican Party will never endorse an AIP member, never. Nor will the Democrats. We need to act as a party, is my point.
Call the question. Further.
Yes, here. Phil?
Call the question.
Call for the question, okay? The question is on the hostile amendment, whether or not the votes in support of this hostile amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against or again?
What's the vote here? What's the
The
motion?
vote is in favor of the hostile amendment that was proposed by John Wayne
Division of the
Howe.
House, please. I call for a division of the House by show of hands.
Yeah, okay, so, for, by hand count, this is a vote in favor of the hostile amendment proposed by John Wayne House. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It fails. Okay, back to the original motion.
Point of order,
Mhm.
did you include your vote?
No,
Okay,
I had my hand up, but I didn't include it.
okay.
Yes.
I'd like to mark for the record one abstention.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question for
Bob,
Mr.
you have to
Byrd.
take the floor because I was the original motion for the. We're back to the original motion for.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you, please.
The chair is here now.
All right, years ago, when Lynette rescinded, whatever she rescinded in terms of our endorsement of other candidates outside the party.
For president, this is only a presidential thing.
Well, that's what my question was, and I'm trying to read the Peruka, was that his name?
Well, it was done more than Perutka. There were it was Chuck Baldwin.
Baldwin.
Okay.
This is my concern, that if, on a national level, if there isn't a candidate running for president that I can't support, but there is, if he runs in the Alaska Independence Party, such as Mr. Baldwin, I would have voted for him, but he was not on the ballot.
Russ, I'll have to call your comments well received but out of order.
Okay.
The business is to deal with the current motion, which was seconded. And that motion was to turn over endorsements to the executive committee with the polling of the delegates here, okay?
And that's failed, correct?
No, that has not been voted on yet, okay?
That's on the floor now.
So, it's on the floor, and I think we've exhausted the arguments anyway, and so does anyone want to call for the question? It's called the call for the question. Phil, you're calling for the question? All those in favor of turning over endorsements to the executive committee to be consulted with all those by email when the primaries are over, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All those opposed? The motion carries. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn, followed by a benediction.
Seconded.
No, I'll entertain a motion. So moved by Phil Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
It is second. Would everyone please stand for a benediction?
Yeah,
Then we'll
yes,
vote
for
after a benediction.
Opposition?
Heavenly Father, we give thanks and praise and glory for those who have traveled all this distance to participate in these actions and to listen to this wisdom that has come across our minds and our eyes and our ears this day. With work that is still to be done, help us to do it properly and thoroughly and fairly, so that all those who have come here know that they are not forgotten and will be part of the process of the unfinished work. We also give thanks and praise for the liberties we still enjoy that give us this opportunity. We ask for your benevolent hand to protect us in our travels and our return home. We give you all credit and point all of our labors towards bringing us closer to a just and free society. In Jesus' name, amen. No, we haven't voted yet, because there's an announcement. And if you go through churches, they'll say, well, there's just a few announcements. And they go on, and they go on. I will not do that. I would need a show of hands of those who are staying here and are willing to go to Pizza Paradiso's back room for a order off the menu dinner. I need a hard count because I'm going to tell them we're coming. Those who would like to go to the back room at Pizza Paradiso's in Kenai, I'll give you all directions here very shortly. Thank you very much. All right, that's a good turnout.
Bob,
Yes?
there's a sheet right here. If you want to be involved in further AIP activities, please put your phone number, email, name on this sheet.
Everyone should do that. Thank you, Arthur. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Point of order, sir. Executive committee has to meet, state committee has to meet right after the convention.
We will do so at Pizza Paradiso's. All right.
I just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you very much for the